I feel like it's only proper that we dive into this whole Jason Collins thing for a couple minutes.
I mean, we don't have to. If you don't want to.
No, I want
I know
to.
you
I
kind
mean,
of expressed on the ride down. You didn't really. You're like, he's gay. Let's move on. It affects.
well, I
nobody.
just, I get the concept of why everybody's making such a big deal about it, and I get why everybody, every outlet and sports and media and news outlet that you hear, everybody is talking about this right now. But to me, it's one of those situations where, and I mean, really, I feel the way I feel because of similar feelings that you voiced to me as well. Is he's a 35-year-old center in the NBA that is good enough to have had a long-term NBA career.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't even that good.
Look, NBA's teams continually kept the guy on their roster. He's good enough to have a long-term NBA career.
Yeah,
Nobody kept him on the roster because they felt bad for him. You don't get to be on a professional sports team unless you're good enough to be on the professional sports team, unless your name is Mark Sanchez or Tim Tebow. And Tebow's gone, and we'll see him not get a job as well. But the guy was good enough to be in the NBA for 10 years, 10 years plus. You apparently have something. You were drafted in the first round. You were considered good enough by NBA teams to be in the league as long as he's been in the league.
He's only had 3 seasons in which he's played 80 games. Or 81 is his max. He's never actually even played an entire 82 games in his NBA 12-year career. In his last, we'll even go with, since 2007, he's played 43 games, 31 games, 31 games, 24, 49, 30, and 38. He's barely good enough to make a roster. He's not even making the court half the time. I'm just throwing it out there. You can tell me
fine,
he's
but the bottom line is there's so many people so many young men that are coming that try to get into the NBA. Yet this man, year in and year out, was chosen by an NBA team to be on their roster over young men that were, 4 or 5 years younger than him.
He seems like more of a guy that they
athletic.
used as a fill-in since 2007. Like I said, in Memphis, he only played 31 games in 2008. So obviously, he wasn't a big enough part of their roster and their plan. It seems like more like he played when somebody else got injured. It doesn't even seem like this is a guy who is just even a bench player or a role player. He seems like a guy that is an emergency type guy. A guy like the Knicks would have brought in this year. Had they had the opportunity with all the injuries to big men they had. He doesn't seem like a guy that actually deserves a spot on the roster. He's more of a Marcus Camby, and even Camby's probably twice the player he is. I mean, the stats don't lie. I mean, I can sit here and you can tell me he had a 12-year NBA career, but when you're only playing half the games and less than half the games a season, really, what does it break down to? 6 full seasons maybe the guy was involved in?
Bottom line is, did NBA teams pay him or not pay him to be on their roster?
I'm just saying.
That's great. Your stats can tell everything they want to tell. The bottom line is,
I'm just saying, you're saying
NBA
he's good enough to have a 12-year career. It's not like he had a full 12-year career. That's all my point is that he did, even though teams may have paid him, they only paid him
like
for
Grant
X
Hill.
amount of
Grant
time.
Hill's been in the NBA for 17 years, but the guy's only played like about 6 years worth of basketball. That's all. But the bottom line is teams have chosen to pay him year after year to be on their roster, so he is good enough to be in the NBA. Bottom line. But at 35 years old, at the tail end of your career, you're a free agent, you're not even on somebody's roster, and you come out and say that you're gay. Look, very happy for you that you were able to come out publicly and feel comfortable enough with yourself to say that. But as you said to me, Erich, on the ride down here, this doesn't even hold a candle to if a guy like, Kevin Durant. Now, neither me nor Erich are sitting here trying to say that we think Kevin Durant is gay. Let's make sure this is understood. We don't think he is. We're just saying a name of that caliber would carry such a larger impact than a 35-year-old Jason Collins who, as far as I know, never even made an all-star team.
By the way, if anybody wants to call and contribute, you guys give us a call, 201-430-2119. Voice your opinion on the matter. Figure I'd throw that in there, Dave.
That's a good point.
Didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to let people know if they did want to call in and get involved in the discussion, 201-430-2119 is the number to call.
And that's why, like I said to you on the ride down about the fact that for me it's like, all right, cool, you're gay, congratulations. It has pretty much absolutely no effect on my life, other than talking about it on this show. And like I said, the bottom line to me is this man. I'm very happy for him in the fact that he can now live his life and, be comfortable with who he is. Apparently his family just found out last summer. It's not like this is something that he's hidden from, just the NBA and teams. No, apparently his family themselves just found out a year ago. His twin brother who played in the NBA didn't even know. And that's the negative side of this, is that this guy had to live his whole life to 35 years old knowing who he was and had to keep it to himself because he didn't feel comfortable.
That's not negative. That was his choice. That was his choice not to come out. Nobody kept him in a closet. Nobody said, don't come out, don't come out, don't come out. He chose not to make that decision. And I think his decision to come out now is solely ego, is solely money-driven, is solely contract-driven. He's a 34-year-old center who, like I told you on the ride down, Dave, he averaged less than 10 minutes a game this year, only played in 38 games, averaged 1.3 rebounds and 0.9 points a game. Why is anybody in the NBA going to give this guy another contract? He obviously doesn't deserve it. He's old. He's way past his prime. Like I told you, his best year was 2005, where he averaged 6 points and 6 rebounds and less than a block and less than a steal a game. Those were his best career stats in 2005. Why in 2013, 2014 is somebody going to give him a roster spot? He obviously is well past his playing days. You can find anybody off the street corner to give you 1 rebound and less than 1 point a game. And you could pay him a lot less money than you'd have to pay him for the league veteran minimum. Like I told you, they're a dime a dozen in the D-League. Pull any one of them up. They're younger, hungrier, and cheaper. The only reason to give this guy a contract right now is because he came out and said what he said. That is it. He's not an NBA champion. He's not an all-time great, but he's a guy who's looking to cement his place in time and get one last deal. To me, that's shameful, that's sad, and I don't agree with it. There is somebody much bigger in the sports realm right now that could be a better face for the gay community in professional sports. And I told you on the ride down, that's Brittany Griner. She did it the right way. She's a rising superstar. She is somebody who at the end of her WNBA career, if she stays healthy, could be the greatest WNBA player of all time. She has that kind of capability.
She does.
She absolutely does. She is somebody young women and just people in general look up to. She's somebody who actually matters in sports right now. People pay attention to her. People tune in to see her. People are tuning in to watch Baylor basketball this year. And for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
She's somebody who can make an impact. She's young. And she came out and she did it quietly. She didn't need to put an article in Sports Illustrated. It wasn't ego-driven to her. It's just who she was. And I'm proud of her. She is who she is. Be who you are. Don't be a 12-year veteran at the end of your career looking for one last payday. Be you. Do you.
I mean, I agree. Griner got absolutely no love. She got no she got nothing for it. It was like a breeze by, like, back page article that you might get to if you're stuck in the bathroom a little bit longer than you planned on. Now I understand the fact that the WNBA doesn't get the attention as our four
and
other
I get
major
it that it's
sports,
a male-dominated sports in this country. People want to make this the bigger story, but the bottom line, this is a guy without an NBA contract for next year. This isn't a guy who even came out who has a long-term deal. Could be anybody. You could have just thrown it out there. Who has a long-term deal right now? Who just signed? Did Ibaka sign? Give me a center that signed a contract.
I think Roy Hibbert just signed one last offseason.
All right, so Roy Hibbert. We'll throw Roy Hibbert. Now, again, same thing Dave said. We're not accusing Roy Hibbert or saying Roy Hibbert's anything. But if Roy Hibbert, a young and upcoming center in the league, a guy who just signed a long-term deal, so Indiana
is stuck with him. Or they're paying him even if they don't want him.
Exactly. Then it matters. Because then you're saying, wow, this guy is coming out, his locker room must be accepting, the team must be accepting. Jason Collins is a guy that has nowhere to play next year. He's a guy who now is pretty much a publicity stunt for anybody who brings him in.
And it seems like that's what he's aiming for.
And any team that brings him in, it's pretty much just a goodwill move. You're not bringing him in. This guy can't help your team win. He's not an integral piece to try and get a championship. He's a guy who may deserve a spot on, like, the Cavs roster, like, off the bench somewhere. Or with the Bobcats.
Well, I will say that, well, first thing, Joey asked in our chat room how we think this is a PR move. And Joey, straight up, this is a PR move because simply for this. Let's see, option A, the man is almost guaranteeing himself at 35 years old a contract because the NBA is what David Stern's one of those owners where he will literally
He's a commissioner.
He'll start talking to the owners of teams saying, "You guys, one of you guys needs to offer this guy a job." Secondly, he is without a doubt going to get a book deal out of this, and somebody is going to pay him a lot of money to write a book. Thirdly, now this man, even after he retires, is going to become the face of professional athletes willing to come out of the closet and say that they are gay. He says he had no intention of being the first man in the classroom to raise his hand and say, "Ooh, me."
BS.
Yet nobody else did it, so he decided to. You went 35 years of your life not waving your hand up in the air. You happen to be, for the first year of your career, going into an off season without a contract. It's a little ironic that this is the year you decide to do it. There's a lot of different things that point to this being a publicity stunt. Once again, let's make sure this is clear, though. If Jason Collins Jason Collins is gay. Congratulations to him for coming out. Very happy for him in that standpoint. But from the world of sports, the impact of him doing this to me is not that big. And I also do consider this possibly a publicity stunt. Is it? I don't know. We'll find out over the next 2 to 3 years. If he comes out with a book and he's all over the news over the next 6 months, you know what? It was a publicity stunt, and it's that simple.